How do I look? Somebody check me.
Perfect.
I didn't ask you. You don't have my best interests at heart. I'm asking them.
Well, of course I do. Absolutely.
Okay, go right ahead.
Milo, do you know what a possum is?
Yes, a little animal. I call people Poppet, Pumpkin, and Possum. They're my three favourite names for people I love.
But it's Australian possum.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, my best friend is Australian. She's from Sydney.
Well, there you are.
So that's where I picked her. She's called me Possum for 10 years, so I'm very fond.
Well,
you may call me Possum.
But possums, of course, are vicious when they're cornered. They're very nasty animals.
Like feminists.
Like our feminists.
Yes, I see. I know where I take you. You see, we're already in sync. And
you know that we have an expression called stirring the possum.
Yes.
Means a provocateur, which is you, of course.
Yes.
So I
like to prod these small, angry animals.
Possum stirrer,
foul-smelling
is what you are.
rodents.
My background is actually sex therapy.
Oh, really? Yeah. I don't need any.
No, I'm sure you don't.
I'm very good at it.
No, I was one of Australia's first sex therapists, and I'm, of course, really interested in what happened to you.
You're so much more interesting than me. Can I interview you?
I wanted to talk to you about the sex thing.
Yes.
The pederast apologist.
Yes.
And which was just fascinating for me because, of course, you made these comments about your own experience and about the fact that young gay guys often have experiences with older men as their first experiences, and they're often very positive. And of course, you were totally right.
Well, I think that there was one line in what I said where I was talking about my own experiences, and I made it sound like I was generalizing out to a universal, saying 13-year-olds should go for it, which is not what I intended to.
It's not what you said.
No, it's not what I said. But there are certain unsayable truths for sure, and one of them is the reality that there is a dynamic of younger adolescents, late adolescents, and early 20s, and older men, which very often obtains in gay relationships, and sometimes that's just what the younger man needs. I think my mistake was saying boy in that interview. What I meant was that sometimes it's what the younger man needs.
And I've been writing about that because I dug out all the research after that happened, and there's fantastic research showing that usually those young males initiate it.
Yes.
They regard it as pleasurable.
Well, I was one of them, and I did. I did, absolutely.
And I think it's a great shame in a way that you were coerced into talking about being a victim, which I can understand, which in a sense
well, it seemed to me a sensible way to address the issue because I don't think that in America, where everything is so driven by victimhood and identity, that any other kind of explanation
and Puritanism,
of course, would have been acceptable. No. And I think that there was one line that I didn't mean, for which I apologize, but the rest of it, I'm entitled to speak about my own experiences and about the results of survey studies and reality in any way that I choose to.
And there was hardly anybody acknowledging that you were right about that. That was what you're saying.
No, and that's how you know that it wasn't really about the subject, that it was more that they saw an opening to drive a wedge between me and conservative supporters. And the left pounced on it because they thought, aha, this is how we get Milo's fan base to abandon him. And it didn't work. But that's how you know, like, it's not really about protecting children. No. And it's like, if we look at this objectively, look at, Jake Tapper from CNN is like angrily denouncing me, saying it's disgusting. How many children have you saved from predators, Jake Tapper? Because I put away a pedophile thanks to my reporting a couple of years ago in London. His name is Chris Layden. He's now serving a prison sentence for raping a 7-year-old, and my reporting put him in prison. I reported on Jimmy Savile before anyone else in the UK. I was the first person to report on Jimmy Savile. And there was a third one too that I won't bore you with the details of this, but I have a long track record, thanks to my own experience, of looking out for these people and calling them out before anybody else does. But for Jake Tapper, CNN, to suddenly, clutch his pearls and say that I was the most appalling and disgusting whatever. See, we were right about him all along. Yeah. What do you mean what are you talking about? It's not about the subject matter. They don't care about the truth.
But it's a very difficult issue because you've got the Kevin Spaceys, you've got the predatory males who are jumping on young boys, and as opposed to this other experience of lots of young men who are gay coming out looking for experiences, often with older men. Yeah. And how do you have a nuanced conversation around that when you've got this unholy alliance of the Puritans and the left using this issue
and establishment Republicans too? I mean, the establishment, the right in its most puritanical form is just as bad and has always been just as bad. Yeah. I mean, there are some libertines who are now libertarians, and libertarians have sort of been forced into the right camp, these days, because there's nowhere left for us on the left, right? But no, I don't think this is confined to the left. I think it's an establishment problem, and it's that atomization and and the sort of accelerated partisanship of every public policy debate, every debate about anything remotely complex or serious or real, whether it's love, death, sex, money, race, all of it is now divided along party lines, and you have, if you don't hold one of two very crisp and completely insubstantial positions, you're a monster, and nobody will, you know, and you can be presented as believing things you don't believe.
Yeah. Do you know about anything about lesbian bed death?
Of course.
Yes,
of course.
Yeah.
No, well, lesbians are not a thing. There are no real lesbians. Women who bed down with other women really just. I mean,
but
this is my 6 pints misogynist coming out. But I don't really believe in proper lesbianism per se, except in tiny percentages. And lesbian bed death is one of the reasons why. I mean, women look for different kinds of fulfillment in life. You know, they want emotional support, they want companionship. Men very often driven more by a cold libido. You know, women very often just want somebody to love them.
That's
and I
right.
don't mean that to sound patronizing. I want someone to love me too, but it doesn't form as much of the priorities in my relationship building as perhaps it does my female
you
friends.
obviously know Dan Savage. Dan Savage is a...
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, I think he's really interesting on this whole issue of desire, because he says to heterosexual women, you're kidding yourself if you could think you're going to turn these men with their 20 times the libido, the testosterone that you have, into, you know, these men who aren't interested in sex anymore.
He's very frustrating because he obviously knows better than a lot of what he says. So he's very, I mean, Dan Savage, if you read his older writing from talking like 15 years ago, he was really a very sophisticated and sensitive, nuanced thinker on sex. I think he's become...
Oh, well, I haven't followed him recently.
Okay, well,
that
recently he's...
But I think that was really right, because of course gay men have the highest sexual frequency.
That's perfectly true, and of course we do, because when you put two men together, and there's a multiplier effect, you know? And two women together, on the other hand, there is a... What's the opposite? Division effect.
And in the middle are the poor heterosexual men who have the brakes put on them by women who are taught by feminists that they don't have to have sex unless they feel like it.
Yes.
And that has been one of the most destructive things of all from the feminist movement, to teach women that they can just shut up shop if they're not interested in sex, and the men have to just cop it.
And effectively become sexless ducks, you know, become lesbians.
Groveling for sex, having sex doled out to them like meaty bites to a dog, as one man once said.
Right, and this, you know, this creates sexual tension, probably creates some sexual violence, frankly, and creates, most importantly, and people will be surprised to hear me say this, but I mean it, huge unhappiness for women. Like, women are not happy with this. I mean, women are getting progressively more miserable for 50 years. Every 10 years they do the surveys, and every 10 years it turns out women are more miserable than they were before. This cannot be unconnected to their changing roles in society. Cannot be unconnected to the rise of feminism. Cannot be unconnected to the messages we're sending women, to rising divorce rates. Cannot be unconnected to, you know, single motherhood. It cannot be unconnected to all of these social trends.
Constant victimhood.
Women are really
unhappy. Privileged women in any society ever are young women being taught that they're
victims and being made unhappy by an ideology that is basically driven by miserable lesbians in gender studies departments who hate men
and who lie about
everything. So campus rape culture, you know, pay gaps. All this stuff is ideology, not economics. Ideology, not science. Ideology, not data.
Well, I'm busily involved in Take Back the Campuses here.
Great.
And I hope you'll come next year and
I would love to do some
work around
Australian campuses.
Because I get so many young men writing to me.
Well, it sounds like we should do a joint tour or something.
Sounds
like we are on the same page about most of this stuff. We'll have to find, to make it a good tour, we'll have to find something we disagree on. But
well, I'm sure we'd find something. Anyway, very nice to talk to you, Milo.
Thank
Welcome
you so much.
To Australia.
Thank you.
Possum stirrer extraordinaire.
And you have my permission in perpetuity to call me Possum.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that vlog. I'm finding this all rather hard work for very little pay, so it'd be really nice if you could think about supporting me financially through Patreon, or at least like my vlogs, tell other people about them, get the word out that we're trying to talk about really important issues here, and the more people that see them, the better for me. Thanks very much.